Hello, it's Thursday the 8th of May 2025 and I've literally just finished my walk around Bedminster and Totterdown. So as that was a fairly short walk, I thought I may as well do my next walk, which is even shorter. I think this walk's only about 3 miles, so I thought I may as well get this done today. So I'm in the Ashton Gate area of Bristol now, which is only just down the road from Bedminster anyway. Now, if you watched my last film, I talked about my friends who were involved in my very first Solitary Rambler films. So that was Michael, Richard, Nigel, Jenny, Martin, and of course I lived in Bedminster with Nigel and Richard. However, by early 1995, I won't go into the details, but I decided that I wanted to live in the Forest of Dean. So I was hoping to get a job over there and move over there. And Richard didn't want the uncertainty of not knowing if and when I'd be leaving and moving out to move over there. So it was agreed between us that we'd move out of Avon New Road and go our separate ways, although we all moved into the same house here in Ashton Gate. Richard and Nigel were in a flat on the top floor here. I was in a bedsit on the middle floor below them, and Jenny was living in another flat on the middle floor. So we all lived in the same house still, even though I was sort of like more independent by that time. I was living in my own flat. And also Jenny moved out for a while and Michael moved into her flat for a while. So all of us that were involved in the Solitary Rambler at some point in those early films lived in this house at some point. Okay, so yeah, so it was March 1995. Richard, Nigel and myself, we moved out of Avon New Road and we all moved to Ashton Gate here, and I lived in a bedsit on the middle floor. And also, just behind where we lived here, you might just be able to see part of it, but there's the Ashton Gate football ground, which is where Bristol City play. So yeah, so quite regularly, if I moved my car at weekends, I couldn't get a space when I came back home because everybody had parked here for the football. Flipping nightmare it was. Welcome to Greville Smyth Park. Once part of Ashton Court Estate, the park was donated to the people of Bristol in 1881. It was originally named the People's Park at Bedminster, but known locally as Ashton Park. In 1902, the park was given its current name when Lady Greville Smyth donated additional land. So even though Richard, Nigel and I were living separately from each other, albeit under the same roof, we still saw each other a lot more than we did in Avon New Road, really. Yeah, we still saw each other a lot, because all they had to do was wander up the stairs to their flat, so it was almost like we were still living together. But no, I was independent by that time. I was living in my own flat, so I paid separate rent from those two. But I was only there for a year. It was really just a temporary measure until I could hopefully get something in the Forest of Dean. But that never happened, sadly, because there were just no jobs over there. So something else happened instead, and I'll talk about that later. I'm just walking up North Street now. This is actually another part of Bedminster, really. But I should be just walking up here for a short distance. I'll be turning off somewhere else. Okay, a hen and chicken pub. I remember coming in here as well. Went there a few times whilst I was living in Ashton Gate. Okay, I'm turning off North Street now. I'm heading along Greville Road. So this part of Bristol is called Southville, and I also lived here too. I lived in quite a few places in Bristol. So, just going back to Ashton Gate then, I lived there for 1 year, between 1995 and 1996. I'll explain another time why I left Ashton Gate, but I moved elsewhere. It wasn't the Forest of Dean as I was hoping to do. I moved somewhere else which was about 20 miles or so away from Bristol. But then after 3 years, I came back to Bristol. And when I came back to Bristol, that was actually when I was trying to find somewhere in Totterdown to live. I looked at various flats in Totterdown, but I couldn't get a flat there. So I ended up coming here to Southville. And Southville was very nice. It was very close to the city centre. So at that time, I was working for Bristol City Council. And the job I was doing was about a 20-minute walk from home. So it was very handy. Following various streets through Southville, I eventually came to Dame Emily Park, built on the site of the former Dean Lane Colliery. There we are, another little speck of Bristol's greenery. So you've got Bedminster over there, East Street sort of just over there somewhere, but Southville's this side. And I'm going to continue to walk through Southville now. There's the Coronation pub in Southville. My way goes along here. I'm heading towards the city centre, but not going quite that far. I reached St Paul's Church, heavily damaged during World War II, and rebuilt in the 1950s. The tower, however, is an original feature. Well, I'm at St Paul's Church. I'm not expecting to get inside, but I'll have a look anyway. Just be nice to walk around it if I can't get inside. No, I didn't think so. Oh well, I'm going to move on from here anyway because you've got people cutting the grass now, so... This is Coronation Road, Southville now, and my walk will take me across this bridge here, a little suspension bridge crossing the River Avon. However, I'm just going to take a small detour and walk a bit further down Coronation Road, because this is where I used to live when I lived in Southville. So here we are then. This is the part of Coronation Road in Southville where I lived. And I had a flat here in one of these houses here. It was a basement flat, and I lived here for 4 years. So yeah, when I lived in Ashton Gate for a year, from 1995 to 1996, I moved out of Bristol for 3 years, and then when I came back to Bristol, it was here on Coronation Road Southville where I lived. And I was in that basement flat for just under 4 years. It was a nice flat. Served its purpose. I was very close to work at the time. I was working in Queen Square, so if you watch my recent video where I walked around St Mary Redcliffe, Castle Park and Queen Square, well, it was Queen Square where I was based at the time. So it was about a 20-minute walk from here in Southville to Queen Square, so it was really, really handy. So yeah, it was a nice flat. I was very happy here when I lived here. But of course, I was here from 1999 to 2003, well, the very start of 2003, because it was 2003 when I left Bristol forever and moved up north to Matlock in Derbyshire, where I've been living ever since. Okay, I've retraced my steps to the little suspension bridge. I'm crossing over it now. And unlike the Clifton Suspension Bridge, I can actually cross over this one. Used to walk over this every day on my commute to work when I worked in Queen's Square. Lovely. Okay, now that I'm on the other side, I'm going to walk down that way and walk beside the River Avon in a westerly direction. The Jail Ferry Bridge was named after a ferry which used to run here across the River Avon New Cut. Welcome to Avon New Cut. The New Cut was dug in the early 19th century to create a tidal-free floating harbour so ships could berth safely. The original design was drawn up by William Milton in 1791. It was later adopted by William Jessup, a distinguished Georgian civil engineer, who presented it to the city's merchant venturers for approval in 1802. So this part of the River Avon basically is like a diversion away from the main part of the river, which goes closer to the city. And that's where I was the other day when I walked by St Mary Redcliffe and Castle Park. That is the original course of the river, but this is the diversion. I walked along Cumberland Road, soon following what is known locally as the Chocolate Path, due to its unusual brickwork surface. Well, I'm on the last leg of the walk now. It's a nice easy walk beside the River Avon as I make my way back towards Ashton Gate where I started. So yeah, this afternoon's walk was a very short walk. I think it's about 3 miles, so not too bad at all. Although I did take a little bit of a detour when I walked down Coronation Road to find where I used to live. But apart from that, a very short, easy walk this afternoon. Not bad at all. Yeah, so Vauxhall Bridge closed then, obviously. Yeah, so the fact that it's got scaffolding on it would suggest that they're trying to restore it or repair it. I don't know, but I'm going to take a guess that if it does reopen, it's not going to be anytime soon. Yeah, so that bridge is actually closer to my flat on Coronation Road, the other side. It's only just up there somewhere. But I rarely cross that bridge. I used to cross the other bridge that I crossed earlier. But that bridge I used to cross if I wanted to walk over to the docks near where the SS Great Britain is. The Chocolate Path ended as I approached the first of the bonded warehouses at the Cumberland Basin and the terminus of the Bristol Harbour Railway. So these massive red brick buildings here on Cumberland Basin are all bonded warehouses. Certainly very iconic buildings on Cumberland Basin. Yeah. Okay, well my way is back across the River Avon. So there's another bridge just here. This is Ashton Avenue Bridge. So this bridge was originally built as a double-decker swing bridge, and on the top deck it would carry trains, and on the lower deck it would carry regular traffic. But now it's been since refurbished and it carries a bus lane across it now, or should I say a guided bus lane, just along where I'm walking now. Okay, right, so I'm back on the other side of the River Avon again now. So I'm going to make my way back towards Greville Smyth Park. Beyond Ashton Avenue Bridge, I climbed up onto a footbridge over the guided bus lane, which provided better views all around. Well, I can get a good view from here over the River Avon and the bonded warehouses and Ashton Avenue Bridge, but perhaps more importantly, if I look over there, I get a really fantastic view of the Avon Gorge and the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, well, I'm nearly at the end of my walk now, so I'll just walk over this bridge and I'm back in Greville Smyth Park. So here I am back in Greville Smyth Park. Lovely. So that's been a nice short afternoon walk, really. It's just been nice to see the final two places I lived in Bristol before I moved up to Derbyshire. So here at Ashton Gate, as I said, I lived here for a year, from 1995 to 1996. I left Bristol for 3 years, and then I returned in 1999 when I lived in Southville for 4 years. So I suppose the question now is, where did I live in between? Where did I live between 1996 and 1999? Well, hopefully it won't be too long before we visit that place. Until next time.